The United States is the biggest crude oil producer on the entire planet. Giant, sprawling refineries you see dotting the Gulf Coast.
The future of gasoline is so uncertain, with electric vehicles on the rise.
Where are we buying all this heavy crude from? Well, take a look.
Import-export dance isn't a sign that the system is broken. It's a feature.
To really get this, you have to wrap your head around the sheer scale we're talking about. Right now, in 2024, the U.S. is pumping out a mind-boggling 13.2 million barrels of crude oil every single day. That's a world record, more than any country in history.
But, and here's where it gets weird, at the exact same time, we're also importing around 8 million barrels a day. So we're selling a ton, but we're also buying a ton. How does that even work? What is going on?
If we have all this oil, why don't we just use our own supply and call it a day? Achieve that energy independence we hear so much about? Well, the real answer is way more interesting than politics. It's a story about chemistry, old machines, and cold, hard cash. All right, so the first and most important thing to understand is this. Oil is not just oil. It's not one uniform substance. This whole paradox isn't about the amount of oil we have. It's all about its chemistry.
You know, I saw this great analogy on Reddit that just nails it. A user wrote, "Imagine you're a massive apple farmer and you grow fantastic red delicious apples. But your family only wants to eat apple pie made with Granny Smith apples. So what do? You sell your red delicious apples to the world and you go to the store to buy the Granny Smiths you actually need."
So let's talk about the actual apples of the oil world. The stuff the U.S. produces from the shale boom is mostly light, sweet crude. Think of it as the premium stuff. It's low in sulfur, easy to refine into gasoline, and because of that, it sells for a higher price. Now, the stuff we import is the opposite. It's called heavy, sour crude. It's thick, full of sulfur, a real pain to refine, and because of all that, it's cheaper.
And let's zoom in on that word sour for a second. It doesn't mean it tastes bad, obviously. In the oil world, it just means it has a lot of sulfur. And that sulfur is nasty stuff. It's super corrosive. I mean, it literally eats metal. To handle it, you need some seriously tough and seriously expensive equipment, which brings us right to the next piece of this puzzle.
So we're pumping out all this fantastic, high-quality oil, but it's the wrong flavor for our system. And why is it the wrong flavor? Well, it's because our entire refining infrastructure is basically a time capsule built for a totally different kind of oil.
This is so crucial to get. Those giant, sprawling refineries you see dotting the Gulf Coast, they weren't built for the light, sweet oil we're getting from shale today. Nope. They were built decades ago and were specifically engineered to do one job: process that cheap, difficult, heavy, sour stuff from other countries.
You know, this mismatch didn't happen overnight. It's a story that unfolded over decades. Back in the 1970s, the U.S. invested billions to build these heavy-duty refineries to handle imported oil. Then, bam, the 2010s hit, and the fracking revolution completely flips the script, unleashing a sea of light, sweet domestic oil. So today, we've got a fundamental disconnect between the oil we pull out of the ground and the machinery we have to process it.
Okay, so the obvious question here is, if our refineries are the problem, why not just fix them? You know, upgrade the old ones or just build new ones designed for American oil? Well, the short answer is, it's a multi-billion-dollar headache. We're talking $15 to $20 billion for a single new refinery. And who's going to risk that kind of money when the future of gasoline is so uncertain, with electric vehicles on the rise? Then you've got the political nightmare of trying to get permits for new fossil fuel projects. It's just not practical when there's a much easier and much more profitable way to do things.
And that easier solution? It's the global market. This is really the final piece of the puzzle. And it all comes down to two simple things: dollars and distance. Look, it really boils down to some simple business logic. U.S. oil companies are in the business of making money, right? So it makes way more financial sense for them to sell their premium, high-value light crude on the world market for a great price, and then use some of that money to buy the cheaper, heavy crude that their refineries were already built to handle. It's a classic case of sell high, buy low.
So who are we buying all this heavy crude from? Well, take a look. The answer is overwhelmingly our neighbor to the north, Canada. A full 60%. That is a huge number. And when you throw in Mexico, our North American partners supply almost 70% of all the oil we import.
Okay, so that's what's coming in. What about the oil that's going out? Well, our high-quality American crude goes pretty much everywhere. We sell a lot to Mexico, to the Netherlands, even back to Canada and China. It's an incredibly diverse global marketplace. And you can't forget about simple geography. This is just basic logistics. Think about it. If you run a refinery in Illinois, it's way easier and cheaper to get crude oil from a pipeline that comes down from Canada than it is to ship that oil all the way up from Texas. Sometimes the most efficient route just happens to cross a border.
So, when you put all these pieces together, the chemistry, the old infrastructure, the pure economics, this thing that looks like a crazy paradox at the beginning actually starts to make a whole lot of sense. It's not a mistake, it's a solution.
And that's really the main takeaway. This whole import-export dance isn't a sign that the system is broken. It's a feature, not a bug. This is the system working exactly as it was designed to, a hyper-efficient global swap that lets everyone play to their strengths.
So why does all this matter? Well, for one, it's an economic win. Companies make more money, and the US gets to be a major refining hub for the world. Second, it's actually great for our energy security. Having a stable partner like Canada makes us way less vulnerable to drama overseas. And finally, this flexibility helps keep the markets stable, ensuring a steady supply of gas and other fuels we all depend on.
When you think about it, what we have today is this incredible masterpiece of logistics and economics, all perfectly tuned for the world we live in. But that leads to the really big final question. As the whole world starts to shift away from fossil fuels, is this intricate, complex machine actually built to last? Or are we looking at a brilliant solution to a problem that's about to become history?